because we're going to read some stories today. So let's talk about a couple of my favorite things here in my cozy reading nook. I have this doll that one of my friends made me. His name's Wolf Den Toys, and he made this wooden doll. Isn't that so cool? There's Uncle Teddy, and I have a bow and some glasses. It looks just like me. So thanks again, Wolf Den Toys. And then I have this name tag. This is the name tag I made at the logging show. You might remember that episode. That was a really fun one. And then this right here is a picture of some of my friends wearing Brecky Breck glasses. Those are my friends. That was taken at one of the Storytimes here in Vancouver. It was really fun. Wow. Hey, if you ever want to send me a picture of some art, if you like doing drawings or coloring pictures, maybe you could send me a picture and I could put it around here. That would be kind of fun. All right. Well, I guess it's time to get started. Okay. So this first book is going to be A Coconut Named Bob. That's kind of silly. A coconut named Bob? What? Oh boy. Okay. On a sun-drenched island lived a lonely little boy. He had a few friends beside his dad and the fishermen on the wharf. Most of the time he worked for the fishermen, selling their catch in the market. When there were no fish to sell, he gathered coconuts the way his father had taught him. He walked along the beach until he found the right tree. Then he climbed its rough trunk. Sitting among the branches, he picked coconuts one by one and threw them down to the sand below. One day, as the boy was working in a tree, a certain coconut caught his eye. He twisted it loose, turned it around and around, looking closely at it. Somehow he knew there was something special about this coconut. He put it aside and continued his work. When the boy was finished, he slid down the tree and loaded all the coconuts into a burlap bag. He headed to the market and sold every coconut except one. He ran home tired but eager. Under the setting sun, he took the coconut behind his house and set it on a log. He disappeared into a weathered old shed and came out holding 2 cans of paint. The boy pried the lid off a can of red paint, dipped his brush into it, and gave the coconut a mouth. Next, he grabbed a can of green paint and painted 2 big round eyes. He looked closely at the coconut's new face, and smiling he whispered, "Your name is Bob." That's kind of sweet, huh? The boy took Bob wherever he went. When they went to the movies, Bob sat in the cup holder. And when they went to the beach, Bob sat on the boy's towel and watched the boy splash in the waves. And when the boy went sailing with his father, Bob went too. Sometimes he would roll around on the deck, and sometimes he would just sit on top of a folded sail. Look at them. They're just watching a movie together. One day, while the boy and his father were sailing to a nearby island, Bob sat basking in the sun. The day was warm, and the boat rocked gently back and forth, and ever so slowly, Bob fell fast asleep. The sky grew dark with clouds, but Bob's eyes were closed, and he didn't see them. The wind grew loud and frightening, but Bob didn't hear it because the boy had not painted him any ears. The boat was tossed wildly back and forth, but Bob didn't wake up. Suddenly, a wave crashed over the side and washed Bob overboard. The boy screamed and ran to the side of the boat. Fearing that the boy would jump in after his friend, his father caught him and held him tight. The boy cried and cried while his father held him close. Oh, that's kind of sad. The angry sea tossed Bob into the troughs and over the crests of the waves and carried him farther and farther away from his boy. It was a long night, and Bob was terrified. After a while, the rain stopped and the wind died down. A drop of water rolled down Bob's face. It wasn't the cold sea water, it was a tear. The boy was gone, and Bob was all alone. Next morning the boy got up, dried his tears on his face. He sat on the edge of the boat and began to cry again, letting his tears fall into the water. The sky was gray and the wind was cold, but the storm was over. That night the boy sat on the deck, gazing up at the stars. He thought about Bob, but there were no more tears. Bob floated on the sea for many days. One afternoon, when the sun was high, an island the size of a pea appeared on the horizon. By the time the sun was setting, it was the size of a pancake. And I love pancakes. Do you like pancakes? Well, that kind of makes me hungry. By the next morning, Bob was resting on the island's beautiful sandy beach. He didn't know how to feel. His boy was lost. He was all alone on a strange island, and something green was growing out of him. Bob didn't know it, but he was becoming a tree. What? Do you see that? There's a green piece growing out of Bob. Whoa. Every day he grew taller and taller. When the wind blew, Bob's thin trunk bent and swayed. When it stormed, Bob's small palm branches drooped in the rain. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and months into years. That's a long time. Bob became a proud figure of a tree. Now, when the wind blew, Bob's sturdy trunk stood strong and straight, and when it rained, it was nothing but a refreshing drink. He thought about his boy often, but he didn't cry anymore. For a while, Bob's life was quiet and lonely. He was the only palm tree on the island. Then, late one afternoon, just as the sun was disappearing beyond the horizon, Bob caught a glimpse of something being tossed in the surf not far from the beach. He couldn't see what it was in the fading sunlight. The next morning, as the sun rose over the ocean, Bob looked down the beach again. If he had been a boy instead of a palm tree, he would have jumped for joy. A coconut was resting in the sand. Years flew by like the wind. Bob was a happy tree. More coconuts floated to the island and grew into neighboring trees. He looked forward to seeing them every morning. During the day, Bob loved to watch the dolphins play in the shallows and little crabs scurry across the sand. Bob's life was a good one, but even after all the years, he still wished his boy could be a part of it. One bright, sunshiny day, Bob was watching the crabs and dolphins when he happened to glance out over the ocean. He saw seagulls diving for fish, and farther away, something else. Almost not believing his eyes, Bob blinked and looked again. There on the horizon was a sailboat the size of a pea. By evening it was the size of a pancake, and in the morning, Bob saw a beautiful little boat anchored right off his sandy beach. The boat had not been there long before an old man and his family started for the beach. When they reached the island, the old man's grandchildren chased after each other on the sand while the adults set out at a picnic lunch. One of the boys ran over to Bob and looked up at his branches full of coconuts. He climbed Bob's trunk and began picking coconuts. The boy had only been in the tree a short time when a certain coconut caught his eye. He twisted it loose, turned it around and around. Looking closely at it, he put it aside and continued to work. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? When he finished, he climbed down the tree, picked up the coconut, and ran to his grandfather. "Look, Granddad, there's something special about this coconut." The old man took the coconut from his grandson and looked at it closely, as if he was remembering something. He retraced the boy's footsteps with his eyes and saw the tree his grandson had climbed. With tears in his face, the old man walked slowly toward the tree as if walking back in time. Oh, wow. For a while, he stood quietly looking up into its branches, thinking of years gone by. Then a smile spread across his face, and he gently reached out and touched the tree. Smiling, he whispered, "Hello, Bob. How have you been?" Do you get it? This man is the little boy that painted the smiley face and the eyes on the tree of Bob when he was a little coconut. And now they're both grown up. Oh boy, I'm so glad they got to be reunited even after a long time, huh? Oh, the end. Well, that sure was fun reading this story. Do you like reading stories? I'm going to start reading stories every Saturday. So if you have a favorite book that you want me to read, have your mom or dad let me know. And maybe I could get a hold of the book and read it in my story time. That would be kind of fun. Be sure to subscribe so you get a notification about when story times are happening. Wow. Well, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time at the next story time.